years of age. Most of them only went up once. It was too tough a life for them. And there's a story told. They were out on 7 Mile Hill outside of Dodge City. And they were having to hold the herd because the pens were all full, and this group of young guys wanted to go in and hoop it up and spend all the money they had. Trail boss wouldn't go with them, and they kept ragging on him, and he wouldn't go. And finally one of those boys said, "Hey, leave him alone. He's one of them older fellows. Good Lord, he's 24. I stood by the fountain as they brought him out. A lost, lonely look on his face. I ain't never seen him in nothing but boots and the wheelchair. Sure seemed out of place. It took him a while to recall who I am. Then confusion broke into a grin. It was though we were saddled up, ready to ride the hackberry pasture again. He laughed as he said, "I remember the time that yeller bronc swallowed his head and pitched you so high that you turned over twice. Me and Benny Bob swore you was dead." He looked up at me and said, "How is old Ben?" I lied and said he's doing fine. No need to remind him his brother was gone. Ben died back in '79. For most of an hour we rode at a trot. We branded and shaped up the steers, drank gallons of coffee, ate sourdough bread, and cowboyed for 51 years. I thought he was an old man when I was a kid. At a time when I needed a friend, he took me to raise, taught me all that I know about horses and cattle and men. See, my daddy had died. I needed a job. I was big for a kid of 15. So they put me to work on the 4-6's ranch, and I was dumb as a gourd and as green. We was looking for strays in the Wichita breaks. It was me and John Gaither and him. I'd lost sight of John. I was looking around kind of daydreaming there on the rim and rode up on some cattle hid out in the brush. A 2-year-old steer come by me, throwed a 9 in his tail and cut a new trail right out through them salt cedar trees. Boy, I lit out behind him and giving her hell. His colt I was riding was green, but I thought to myself, he ain't getting away. This roan is a running machine. We was going full bore when we got to the bank. The stream wasn't wide as my hat. I almost pulled up, then I thought, what the hell, I'll jump rivers wider than that. Well, I balked that old pony plumb up to his gut. He was wallering and thrashing around and going down deeper with each desperate lunge, and me praying he'd find solid ground. And just at the moment that I heard his voice, a rope appeared right by the roan. "Get out of that cack and hang on to my line. The colt will get out on his own." I've crossed that old river many a time. Found me a bog once or twice. But I still remember a 30-foot rope and a good cowboy piece of advice. When you ride that river, son, make sure your horse is gentle and seasoned as well, 'cause only the good ones will get you across. That quicksand goes clean down to hell. I got up to leave and he reached for my hand. He said, "Son, I'm sure glad you dropped by. If you see old Ben, have him saddle my horse. I hate sitting waiting to die." His voice started cracking. He swallowed and said, "I'm nearing the end of my ride. But if I cross the river before you get there, I'll leave a good horse on this side." Riding back to Texas from a drive to Abilene with the wagon, the Remuda, and the crew. Summer run was boiling red and rising by the hour. Was suicide to push the horses through. darling, won't you hurry home? Now trailing longhorn cattle is a life that's wild and free, and the prairie is a puncher's paradise. But it was dark and deadly in the spring of '83, when the Cimarron was red and on the rise. We were at the wagon, playing cards and telling lies, when he announced that he was going on. We told him he was crazy, he would never make it through, but Cody smiled and saddled up the roan. Then I made him a promise I'd look after Annalie, in case he didn't make it through tonight. He turned his collar to the wind and bid us adios, and the Slim Dixie he rode out of sight. Now trailing longhorn cattle is a life that's wild and free, but the devil's play of hell in paradise. 'Cause it was dark and deadly in the spring of '83, when the Cimarron was red and on the rise. It was nearly 7 days before we got across. Rome's in the shadow of a hill. He was skinned from head to toe and covered up with mud, but there was not a sign of Cody Bill. I guess we knew that he was gone, but we looked anyhow. Rode for miles and searched on either side. We combed the brush and drug our ropes through every water hole, but Cody Bill had taken